I'm aiming and aiming and aiming and aiming, and the gun's starting to put weight on, And I thought, holy shit, if I move, this is over. But once in a while, I thought I could see a tine. He would move his head. But it was a long time, 10, 12 minutes. So finally I decide, well, if he bounds, he's going right into those firs. I'm never going to get him, and I know he's not going to turn around and go out in that open.
Welcome back to another episode of Northwoods Whitetails podcast. This week we are joined with Del Green and his wife, Nancy Green. You guys may have heard of Del Green. He's wrote a book, Tall Tines and Wide Racks. It was released quite some time ago. There's a good chance if you hunt the North, you know Del. You've heard about him. He is a very influential person through the state of Vermont. He'll tell you a little bit about some of the things that he has done for the camp owners of the Northeast Kingdom and creating muzzleloader season and amongst many other things. I am joined this week by Brent Dragon, and yeah, here you go.
Argue?
Yeah.
Oh, God. That's funny. Oh, this could be a really good...
I would say so. Keep it going. How did the two of you guys meet?
Pardon me?
How'd you two meet?
Oh no, that'll take up 1 hour.
I'll do it as short as I can. She was a freshman and I was a senior in high school. She was very attractive, but when you're 14 and 18, there's a big difference. We went out on one date and never really saw each other much ever. I married young. I eventually got divorced, and I had a relationship with somebody. And in the middle of all that ended after several years. And I had my two sons, and they were living with me. And at about 10 and... Huh? Ooh, an aunt. At 11 and 13 or something like that. And so this Camaro pulls in front of my Honda business across from the Elks Club. And we worked on boats, motors, trailers, snow machines. We sold Polaris and Honda. And I see this girl get out of it and come walking towards the shop part. I had 3 mechanics working there, and and so she gets, and I walk out a little bit, and she's got these papers, and it was her, and I knew who she was, but I hadn't seen her for years. And she said her father had a little gun shop in Morgan, and this doctor had a bunch of guns he wanted to sell, and he gave her a list. And she took it home to her father, and her father really had very, very little money. They were poor, and just a little dinky gun shop, but he couldn't buy them. And so he said, why don't you stop at Del Green's? And so she did on the way through. And I guess really you said what I just told you about the guns. And so I said, well, I'll look at them, And then she turned around and went back to the car. And I don't know if I want to be down at the marina or where, but tomorrow, she said she's going to stop at the same time. I'm going to be here. So 4:30, in comes the Camaro, and she gets out and walks up. I can't sell these guns. I can't buy them because they were high-end guns, Seikos, Weatherbys.
Oh.
People that buy those buy new. Or if you came in to buy a used Weatherby, it would still be $400 or $500. And so I told her that, and she said, well, okay, I'll tell him. And so she was standing there, and I gave her the papers back, and I kept looking down, and I was trying to see her left hand to see if there was a ring on it. And so apparently I looked down more times than I thought I did. And so she says, well, okay, bye. And she starts to walk away, and she says to me, no, I'm not married, I'm not engaged, and I'm not seeing anyone. And she's walking away. And if you want to ask me out, you can. So she's 20 feet away now. I said, how do I get hold of you? Call my mom. And we've been together how many years?
How many?
Yeah.
Since 1981.
Yeah.
How
and
many
one
years
little
is
cool
that?
41.
Yeah.
41 years.
Jeez.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Is it really?
So I used to shoot a lot.
Holy crap, she says.
If you'd ever known.
Are you taping this?
Maybe.
Okay, this is cool. She's with me a few days, and I liked it. We shot a lot I always shot a lot, and I taught my kids to shoot. And we put the thing inside the tire and roll it down the hill, everything. And so one day I'm going to take the kids and I had bought them a Winchester lever action 22s. So she's going with us, sort of the first time, the two kids with us. And so we go to this sand pit, gravel pit, and used to have a lot of light bulbs in the house and wherever. And remember when the light bulbs blew out all the time?
All the time.
By the end of the year, I had 25 light bulbs or something. And so we'd go out and stick them in the sandbank, and so the kids are shooting at them, and they've hit a few. And so Shane, who's like 11, turns around to her, so she's just watching. And I was teaching him about leaving the gun open and stuff, and so he's got the gun like this, and he says, "You want to shoot?" And she says, "Yeah, I'll try a shot." So she looks at it, closes it up, turns around, pow, a light bulb goes, psh, and she drops the gun down, opens the action, and goes, hands him back the gun, and the boy's eyes are like this. My son Sean was the older one. She'll do.
That's a great story.
Precious.
Yeah.
Very good. Very
That
good
is.
story.
That is.
Anyway,
So you used to go out to the deer woods with him and help set up, and you just showed me that photo. Come on.
Yeah. I showed him the one where I carried all that stuff down off the mountain,
yeah.
the ladder and the...
Oh my God. She's carried a lot of stuff. The ladders, the tree stands. Yeah, and we would go scouting in October an awful lot, especially in Maine, but always go in a new place. Wherever there was a new logging road, you would hope hunting season there wasn't a gate, and she would, I'd drop her off and she'd head up in somewhere, but generally along the back of big cuts, but big ones. And then I'd go somewhere else and she'd come, I'd get back with her, and she said, "If you go through the woods over there, there's a smaller cut there on the side of that hill." "You already been there?" "Oh, yeah." But she would find scrapings and hookings and stuff. And so we did it a lot and had a lot of fun doing it. Pre-hunting season is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And one day while she was waiting for me, she carved her initials down by a road on a fallen log, or maybe a log that was left there by loggers. I think it was just NC.
No, actually, it was Nan, and I remember I just saw that picture a little while ago.
Yeah.
Because we took a picture of it. I'm sitting by the log, and it says Nan. So it's a buck, about this big.
Well, anyway, there was some friends, Nathan Chesney, the gun dealer guy. He and his father and Roger were up in Maine. We didn't even know they went anywhere near the same place we did. Christmas time, we have a big party here. "Hey, we know where you were hunting season." "Where?" "You were right here." "How do you know that?" "You wrote your name on a log
No kidding.
at the end of a yard area,
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty neat.
I guess so.
Yeah.
We had a turtle in the driveway the other night, a box turtle in the driveway, and my old man got the bright idea to take a Sharpie and write Cash's name on the top of the turtle to see if the turtle comes back.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it a little one?
Yeah, it was about 8, 12 inches
Wasn't a
across.
snapper.
No, it was a little box turtle. Yeah.
Because there's down in Newport, in for Magog, there's
Yeah.
a lot of snapping turtles.
Yeah, I believe it. Especially South Bay.
Snap. Oh,
Yeah.
God, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Brutal.
If
Yep.
you wanted to know what my opinion of to be a successful hunter, you got to start with a good wife, understanding.
That's very good information.
I think it's if you were to ask me, probably should add this at the end, but one of the secrets that I have, we all have a couple secrets we share with family and maybe a friend, but years ago, we learned from mistakes, and so we're tracking deer, and my personal opinion is if you, and some would disagree, but I generally go right along on it because 90% of the time, for me anyway, you bump the deer because, or you spend hours not freshening up this track. So I beat along on it till I jump it. And then my personal opinion is the second time you bump this deer is the most important time you can have. My feeling is that the deer is where he is because he wants to be there. And there's a reason. There's a doe over here and 3 there and 2 down there. And that's why he's here. And he doesn't want to run a half a mile. And I think you might agree that, in a few hundred yards, he's going uphill because 110% of the time they go for elevation. So you don't know where he's turned until you've gone too far. And it's because you don't read the woods. And if you're coming through the woods, mixed growth, normal woods, mixed growth, whatever, thick firs, whatever, and you see a change of scenery in front of you where there's some hardwood or an opening of some sort, you should not be on that track. You need to get off it. And sometimes I'll just turn the opposite way in case he might have seen me, and I'll go down, make a track around. Or when I see it and I think I've got the distance, then I will go uphill and hunt as best I can hunt for a half an hour to come in behind. And that deer can only has to be the yardage he needs to see you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no sense making a quarter-mile loop here. He's just 75 yards away from you, and the minute you come out, he's gone. Mm-hmm. So you need to read the woods.
Yep.
And that's what I try to tell people.
When you did that, did you play the wind in effect, one way or the other?
No. I've given up on that when I was 30.
Yeah.
Given a choice, yes, if I have a choice. But too often I was trying to make a loop to work with the wind and stuff, and I felt I was wasting time. But
yeah.
Yeah.
The wind changes direction so often in the big woods or the mountains or whatever anyways.
Oh, yeah, well said.
Yeah.
Personally, I think you got to try to beat the wind with everything that you do and what you put on and what you had to eat, and
yeah.
They started laughing at me when I was 30 and I wouldn't have spaghetti for supper.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get a deer this year? No. Did you get one last year? No.
Yeah.
I was very, very careful about that and where I hung my clothes. Never near a wood fire. My clothes stayed out, and I'd put them on wet before I'd put in a wood-smelling
clothes.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense, right? That smoke. Smell smoke for hundreds, thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
You smell it right now, those fires in Quebec.
I know it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So if I thought maybe you'd want that.
Yeah, that's very good info.
Yeah.
So when you looped around that deer, how fast are you going to him? Where you think he is? Are you really creeping along, or are you just kind of moving right in there, just waiting for him to make the first move or catch him before he jumps up?
Well, and like I said, when we start off there, I generally go right along.
Yeah.
Not foolishly, because once in a while things work out for you, especially if he hooked up with a doe and he's not paying attention to what he should be.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm not going fast tracking, but I go right along until I see where I think I might have. And also, if he's striding, he's probably not going to, he's going through that opening. But when you see that his tracks are slowed down, that he's looking for a place to nestle down for a while.
Yeah.
So I make a loop, and then I come in sneaky, and That's where I've had probably a high percentage of my luck. But I've chased them all day in 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I crossed the river once 5 times, took my clothes off every time.
no kidding.
Swear to God.
My God.
Yeah.
Wasn't warm either, was it?
It's the one out over the desk out there with the little drop tine.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That was in Maine. And I went up on this mountain, Thrasher Peaks. And I picked up a track and I took it for a ways. And we had a lot of snow, like 5 or 6 inches of new snow on top of 4 or 5. And I cut across the mountain. It's hard to find a track that day because, they nestled down that night. So you might as well beat-foot it until you find something. And I picked up his track with a little snow in it coming down. Actually, there's a picture of a hooking beside that deer out there. And he hooked, and the hooking's on top of the snow a little. Now we're going to have some fun. So he goes downhill, and he goes out in this huge clear cut. And so I go beat-footing it out through there, and I had put him off, and he'd gone downhill and headed towards a small river. And in the course of time, I put him across the river, and I've always felt, and I might be wrong, but coyotes don't like water, and they don't like to cross it, and very, very seldom. And I think a doe brings her young ones up real young to realize Mama's going across this water for a reason. Remember the picture, the video of Matt had with the doe in the water and the coyote, and the doe would go over here and the coyote would go on the shore, back and forth, back and forth.
No kidding.
Yeah. And they won't go in.
Yeah.
At least I feel that.
That's their defense.
Yeah.
The coyotes won't.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
maybe when the deer crosses that water, he's trying to get rid of me now, So after a while, if they calm down, they're liable to come back across the river because they want to be where they want to be. Well, it did. So I'm looking for the tracks, I never found it on the other side. So you know how they go down the river a ways?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I turn around, I go back up. Oh, no. Okay. So finally I cross the river where I find a track. I go down for quite a little ways, and it goes back across the river. 5 times. The 5th time it crossed, it started up this mountain, and there was a logging road half across it. And I got up to that, and it's like 4:15, and I'm a long, long ways from my truck. And so I see where he ran across the road, but he walked across the road, and he's walking uphill. But all my fooling around down below, he's had 2 hours to go find a good spot. So I decide that I can't get him today, so I might as well head out. Because I'm standing on this road. It's not the short way to my truck, but at least I'm not going through the woods. So I start to leave. Oh, by the way, it started raining, a light rain.
Oh.
And I stopped, and now you'll know, before we go any farther, that I'm a little screwy, I look up at the deer, and I hollered up, "Okay, big boy, you win today, but tomorrow, enjoy your evening. Tomorrow is your end of your life."
That's
And
awesome.
I holler that, and I start walking away, and then I stop. Del, you tell everybody never quit. And I got another 30 minutes. I go back to the track, took my coat off, laid my fanny pack down, headed up in, saw the spotlight, dropped down, because I thought maybe he'd see me, but I don't think he had. And I made a loop and came in behind him, and I shot him in his bed.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
That's a good story. That's really
that's
good.
kind of cool because,
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh my God, I dress it out, I drag it down a ways, but not right to the road. It's dark, very dark. I walk the roads. I finally get about 2 miles to, well, tell you, Budweiser Brook. When you're scouting, sometimes it's not stupid to put a 6-pack of beer in a little brook that you're going to cross on your way back. In the course of season, there's nothing against the law about having a beer on your way back to the truck, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy. I had my beer.
Just don't throw the cap away.
No.
No, put it in your pocket.
Oh, I got to tell them
That's
that.
another story.
So I get back to my truck and I drive a long ways back to the camp. And have you ever met my friend Coon Fortin?
I have.
You
Yes.
have?
Yes.
Well,
Very
that's-
good guy.
Yeah. Nice guy to have around if you want a 200-pound deer thrown in the back of your truck, you know. So I get back to camp, and we have this thing at camp, 7 o'clock. If you're not back, we go look for you. And everybody kind of likes to know where you're going that day within reason, you know. So I get back to camp, and it's about 10 past 7, and everybody's going out the door. They're dressed, and they're headed up to where they think I am. And so they're happy. They haven't got to go traipse around. And, well, you get one? I said, yeah. And Coon always goes, the knife. Let me see the knife. You know, it's got some blood on
Yep.
it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the son of a bitch does. So, wow, we're all dressed. We got to go get it. I said, I am not going back there tonight. I said, my T-shirt's wrapped around his head. I'm not going back. We're getting a deer. I said, oh, Jesus. So we go back. We get there, and I've had a bad ankle for a long time, and I pushed myself to the point when you stop, you're hurting. And I just said, I can't go up there. I'll just sit here. Yeah. Well, they start to go, and then turn around. And Coon said, you put your tag on it? I said, no, I didn't. Well, give me the tag, you know. So anyway, they get the deer out, and everybody's happy. But pretty good story about never giving up.
Yeah.
Although I've done that a lot of times. I walked home in the dark like you have. So
Yeah. Yeah. Determination.
yeah, I think you can't. I mean, if you're a quitter, you won't excel at too many things, even work.
Yeah.
And so Nancy just thought of I think you'll really like this. It's not much about killing a deer, but about the hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm up in Maine at, where did we stay?
Wilson's Mills.
Oh, Pittston Farm.
Oh, Piston Farm? Was
Yeah.
that Piston? No, it wasn't. Was it?
Yeah, Pittston Farm, which you've heard of.
Oh, yeah.
So we hunted up there for quite a few years. Rented the first cabin he ever rented out. Didn't even have any. I talked him into it. There was no kitchen. There was so salt and pepper shaker. Remember that. So the year before, I found a place that was a hot place for deer moving. If you got no snow, then I'm a good one for tree stands and blinds. I kind of like them the last hour and a half of the day. And I never hunt where they are, so I would go to where it is. So this is quite a few years ago. So I got I got my backpack and some little boards for steps and some screws and a screw gun and enough boards to make a little sit in a tree stand, which might be frowned upon by some wardens. So I hike up in a long ways, and I get there, and I build me a little tree stand. That I get back to my truck, it's about 12:30, and we were staying in a campground then. No,
By the river.
yeah,
That's where we always stayed.
yeah.
Ledbetter Falls.
You're right. So anyway, hunting season, I'm going in there, you know. But it's not hunting season yet. So I come walking back out, get to my truck. I had a cap on my truck at the time. I open the cap, drop the tailgate, turn around and get my backpack off. Oh, there's my cooler. So I open up a cooler and I take a beer out, take a cap off, put it in my pocket for some reason. And then next thing I know, there's a guy standing behind me. He's about 6'15". This guy is huge, and it's a warden. How you doing? Okay. what you been up to? Oh, just scouting around. He said, yeah. He said, that partridge in the corner there, oh, by the way, it's Sunday. When did you harvest that? And I don't think in my life I ever forgot to take a partridge out at night, and I got back and didn't and left it in the truck. Embarrassing, but I did. So it was cold and hard, so. Okay, let's go around the front of the vehicle. So we go around, and he said, why don't you open the door there and hand me that shotgun? Well, I think in Maine, the gun can't be in the cab. And now I know my hunting in Maine is done for 2 years anyway. And so I pull a gun out, and it's Ithaca 20 gauge. And he, okay, you put that back. He said, well, let's go back to the back of the truck there. So we walk back, and this warden's pickup pulls up with a young warden that I think he was training, maybe. So he gets out, and they confer. And then he comes back to me and asks me a few questions, and where you're staying, and how often do you hunt in Maine and stuff, just small talk. And so he said, well, I'm sure you got a license. Yeah, so I give him my license, and the young warden goes back to his vehicle to check on it. And the big guy says, well, you want a sandwich? I said, no thanks. And he said, hey, don't let this bother you. I said, I make a hell of a sandwich. And I said, no. He said, you ever hear of Dagwood? I said, yeah. He said, I make them like that. And I got choices. Where else in the North Maine woods you get choices? What do you want for ham or turkey today? And I said, no, thank you. He said, don't let this spoil your day. I said, well, I think it's going to spoil more than that. And, well, you never know. Well, suit yourself. So he goes to the back of that truck, and he's making a sandwich, and then I'm just standing there very upset with myself. Mostly the gun deal. So it's pretty obvious what I was doing in my backpack. That now I got a screw gun, and I wasn't hunting. So pretty soon they walk back together. And the guy's eating this big sandwich, And the other guy, the rookie, is not much bigger than I. And you guys remember the old little handbooks we had you could put in your pocket?
Mm-hmm. I do.
What's wrong with what today, huh? Everything you needed was in there.
It was.
But the young warden says, here, I'm going to give you one of these. He said, next time you're out, how'd that go? You're out scouting around, and you knock down a partridge. Why don't you take care of it properly? I said, yes, sir. And he said, why don't? And he hands me another one. Same thing. He said, why don't you take this one? And if you're sitting in the car and it's raining, and nothing better to do, why don't you read this one? I said, yeah. Okay. He gives me a third one. And he says, when you're sitting in your tree stand, why don't you read this one? He knew, because the other guy must have told him. And I said, okay. He said, if we took a hike up to that tree stand, we might not like it, huh? I said, no, you wouldn't. Okay. He said, we're not brilliant people, but a hang-on doesn't need screws. I said, no. Okay. He said, well, you have a good day. And I almost fall on the ground. And he turned around and walked back to the truck, which was a touch from me. And I'm just shocked. I can't believe I got a break like this, especially the gun deal.
Mm-hmm.
I've broken 2 laws here. And I said, hey, you guys, I don't know what to say. I'm stuttering like I said, except thank you. I guess just thank you. So the big guy goes, he said, a guy don't even throw a beer cap away in the woods. He ain't all bad.
No kidding. Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yes. My dad was the head of the state police here, and I came home and I told him this story, and I said, Dad, I got to get a hold of this guy's boss, a superior in Augusta or something, and tell him what this. My dad goes, no. don't do that. You know why.
Yeah.
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 Oh, okay, Del.
Get in trouble for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a nice, one of my better stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a nice guy.
Yep.
He knew he taught me more than.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
There's never been a screw gun in my truck again.
Ever since. I bet.
Huh. That's a pretty good
So-
story. So you hunted Maine for quite a few years?
Yeah, I guess 25 years. You know, something I regret, I never had time to hunt. I had my own business or I worked, and I only got hunting weekends and Thanksgiving for many years. And I was probably 50 years old before I could ever take a vacation.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think if I'd had some time, I'd have done pretty well. But, you know, Thursday, sometimes you could have Friday off with Thanksgiving, you know, but I just never had a week,
Yeah.
ever.
And did you work for yourself?
Well, we had a couple of businesses, and it was the same thing. You can't sell a Polaris snow machine, you know, in November if you're not at the shop, and everybody wants to talk to the boss.
Yeah.
And then we had a landscape company that went back into construction, and I'm known as the greater magician. So
Yeah.
I won't brag about my hunting, but I can do a lot of things with a grater that you would not believe.
No kidding.
Yeah. And my boss knows it, and just, I still work a little
Yeah.
for a great guy. You guys get around, when you go to Bloomfield, just before Bloomfield, big log yard there, and a new shop, and his name is Mike Belknap, has a camp with his father on West Mountain. But one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life, and we call it anal. He's a perfectionist, everything,
No kidding.
and I am. And so we get along like this. I mean, if there's one little thing wrong, fix it, you know. If there's dirt on the fender of that truck, clean it. You know? So,
So you work alongside with Eric.
pardon me?
You
Yes.
work with Eric.
For what?
With
You wo-
Eric?
With Eric. You work
Oh,
with Eric.
my God.
Yep. Yep. I know him well.
Jesus, what a guy.
Yeah, he is.
And what an operator.
Yeah.
As I've been in construction a lot of my life, and he's as good as I've ever seen.
Yeah.
If he's putting a road in with a bulldozer for logging, he don't need the grader.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a good guy. Very
Yeah,
good guy.
awfully nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. So, Maine, was that your favorite place to hunt?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not so much now because it's changed so much. I can't seem to get away from the logging and the new types of equipment and leaving the tops and the limbs all in the woods, you know, with the new skidders. And Christ, the moose can't even walk through it. There's
Yeah.
nothing there.
Yeah.
And having to get up at 3 a.m. and hope you get to the place you want to hunt before there's 2 pickups parked there. It kept getting worse and worse. So I think now if I was a little younger, I'd head farther north. You know, I'm sure there's land I haven't found.
Yep.
And so I miss that. And
He's a big woods hunter.
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, you guys are. So you would do the same thing. You're looking for some place you can hunt.
Away from people.
Away from people, and you know, we're there to have fun. You want to enjoy the day, and you want to enjoy every bit of the day. You only can have those 10 or 15, 20 days that year, you know. And so when it becomes frustrating, I just this ankle's fused, has been for quite a few years, and it never bothered me much except going uphill more with my toe. But it never hurt much. And for some reason on that project I was on, well, I know what it was, had shot rock, big ledge shot rock we installed along this big slope for 100 yards down to this river. Had to go up and down it several times a day, very carefully. I mean, you're younger and very good shape. You would have had to do the same thing, you know, like a couple of ski poles and favoring that ankle. And then 3 days before deer season, started hurting bad. And we finished that project the Friday before deer season. Well, October, so I can hunt New Hampshire. I couldn't walk. I tried to hunt and tried, and we had put up a tree stand with a 6x6 platform on it and a blind on the stand. It was only 6 feet off the ground, but it was a good spot. And I never used it.
Okay.
No kidding.
5 days later, no, a week later, she came in and hauled everything out for me. I couldn't walk. And very discouraging. So I went and had some shots. Mansfield Orthopedics.
Yep.
I own part of that place. Yeah, you don't know me. Everything's new. So I go get a shot in my ankle, and outside of dislocating my shoulder so bad, this arm was right here.
Ooh.
Not over here hanging. It was right here. Almost passing out, excruciating. And, well, I did pass out finally, but the second worst thing I ever had was him giving me a shot last fall. And I don't know what he hit, but it hurt and hurt and hurt. And then 2 months later, he suggests send me to UVM where they could do it arthroscopically,
Ultrasound guided.
Okay. Yep.
So I go down there, and it was worse because it's a teaching hospital, and I think I had a rookie.
Huh.
It was exceptionally painful. So I came home and said, that's it. Never again. I'd rather limp.
Yeah.
So we go back to Mansfield to see about getting, Mansfield Orthopedics, about getting an operation. They told me I'd be 5 to 6 months non-weight bearing because this ankle's got to be, it's been fused once. So how about another shot? No, you don't have enough money. So it might help you. No, I do not want one. Nancy's with me. There's the PA.
PA, Kristen Ely. I don't know if you heard of her or not. She used to live in Stowe.
I know her very well.
You do not.
I do.
Yeah, you know Dr. Antel?
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
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 She's selling her house.
Yeah, she is. Yeah. Yeah.
They're moving in together.
Yeah.
Well, she was in there. The doctor left, and she goes, I could give you a shot that I don't think will hurt. I said, no, thanks. So she's putting her things away, and I'm sitting up, And she says, I'm not going to beg you, but I wish you'd let me. I'm pretty good at giving shots. I look at her, and if she hadn't been so attractive, I wouldn't have said yes. But I did. So lay back down. So I do. I don't know, 30 seconds, whatever later, I felt a tiny little prick, but when they give you a shot to numb it first.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes over, now she's getting the big needle. She gets a Band-Aid, and she comes back and puts it on. She's all done. The word you, I cannot believe it.
You never felt it.
No kidding.
No.
The difference
Wow.
between experienced and unexperienced, I guess.
You don't have to tell her that you heard this because she knows.
Yeah.
Because a few days later, you get, unlike stuff in the mail today, a review of where the nurses were nice, was the place clean. So,
There's a good chance she might even listen to this.
well,
Really? Oh yeah.
She
'cause
shot
she's
her
on-
first. She shot her first buck last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we got the story. I
Yeah.
was happy for her. Actually, she's got my book.
Yeah.
A friend of hers,
Who gave it to her?
Hannah,
Hannah did. Yeah.
has lent it to her. So anyway, I lost my train of thought here. So they call now. You don't fill out the paper anymore. So they call me up, and not her, and it's a recording. Yeah. And at the end, they said if you'd like to speak to someone live, a live person or something, hang on for a few seconds, and it was 15 seconds, and a woman came on and introduced herself and said, what'd you have to, they know who they're talking to, what'd you have to say, Del? And I said, just something real short. You tell Christian that I want to date with her in that office 3 days before deer season from now on until I'm dead. Because she's the only one that could ever give me a shot that didn't bring tears to my eyes.
No kidding.
Well, I had to go back, and she'd got the message. Yeah, so they told her.
That's pretty good.
And you know what? I will do it. Yeah.
So you're still deer hunting quite a bit.
Well, I had a bad year last year. I did not hunt.
Yeah.
The first time in my life. I tried a little bit, and it was so painful that the fun was out of it. And so I went looking around, trying to find a place that I could go 100 yards and put my blind up. And I kept looking, and I found a spot, and I took her up to it. Not then, but it was near the end of the season. It was in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
But it was rifle season, and it was towards the end of the season. So I found a spot where there was snow, where there was quite a lot of deer movement, and they seemed to be coming up out of this little place, and so the wind seemed good and everything. So I go get my blind, and I set it up. And it was probably only 100 yards from my truck, which was out of sight. And so I went there like an hour before dark. And I'm looking all around and stuff, and I kept glancing to this one spot off to the side, and all of a sudden, here comes the deer. Christ, it's a buck. It was about a 4 or 5 pointer, like this. And right behind it is a doe. He was in front. He came up over the bank. He's, 40 yards from me, and turned and started to walk away. And I didn't shoot it, and I don't think either of you would have either.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty pumped up. I'm going to be back here tomorrow. And of course, I didn't see anything, and I didn't get anything, but I found a place. And in that area, I can get to some of it. And I am doing better than I was, because I have some braces that, no, I don't want those. They're not going to work, and
Yeah.
but they do.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping I probably won't be able to track deer, but at least I can go hunt within reason.
Get back in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say that maybe a piece of advice to a lot of these younger guys is to get into the tracking game now while they have the youth in shape?
Yeah, definitely.
There comes a point in time where you can't do it as well as you want to do it.
Yeah, we can learn from that, huh?
Hmm.
You took the words out of my mouth, but they need a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And it's not brain science, but if you got somebody to talk to, which I never really had. I had an uncle that loved to take me hunting, but here, sit here, I'll make a loop,
Yeah.
So I think today we have a lot more people, I think, tracking deer, don't you?
Yeah, I would agree.
I would
Yeah.
say.
Yep.
It's become so popular, and it's fun.
Yeah.
There's excitement in front of you all day long.
Yep.
And what's better than that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yep. How
But
did you get into wanting to track?
A lot of people ask me that, and I just thought it was, I'm going to follow this, because at the end of the rainbow here, maybe there'll be something exciting here. It was better than walking where there was no tracks,
Yeah.
And so I think that's all there was to it. And then for me, it was a learning curve. Even my uncle didn't know all the little things that we three know.
Yeah.
I had nobody to learn from.
Yeah.
And so it was from mistakes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, the thing about the woods, reading the woods, it didn't take me long to figure that out. I mean, about the 7th or 10th time, the same thing happened. Oh, I got to figure out a way to do this, you know. And then when it worked, then I was hooked on it, you know. And
Like someone's flipped a switch.
yeah, to go do what I said I might be able to do this fall, I'm not all pumped up, but I'll go. And I know I'll cut a track somewhere and say, I got to try this, you know. So, you know, we all get older, and I'll be 81 the end of the month, and so no complaints.
Yeah.
No, God, no.
You're in extremely good shape for 81 years old. You do not look 81 years old.
Yeah, I got a lot of broken parts. Fused vertebrae, you know, the knee replacements. This wrist has got 11 screws and a plate in it. You know, it shouldn't even be here. They put me on a helicopter. You would not believe.
How did that injury happen?
Well, I'm a non-professional logger,
Mm-hmm.
meaning stupid. You know, like all of us, cut a lot of firewood. We cut all our own firewood here for 30-something years, cut it all for hunting camp, you know, so that's the extent of it, except I had a landscape business. We took down trees. We had a bucket truck, had people that were afraid of heights, so I'm up, you know, and learning to fall trees so they didn't hit the house or the garage. And I learned nothing to do with this, but if it's only can come out in the driveway and it's a paved driveway, get 2 dump trucks, fill them with their tires, bring them up and stack them in the driveway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I know it all, you know. So I'm an inspector on the power line, and down near, I don't think,
Victory?
yes, yeah. See, this is why you're helping us here.
Okay.
The Holiday in the Hills, which you may never have heard of.
I've never heard of it.
No? Up in Victory, they never had a phone, any of those homes in there, the farms or anything, they never had any phone lines. And they were trying to raise money and for years to get to the phone company, you know. And there was an old lady that lived in the house up at the end of the road, way up in the woods.
Maud Lund.
Yeah, Maud Lund. And she kind of was famous in the Northeast Kingdom because they put this Victory Days or something on, and it was to raise money. And they'd have all kinds of things there, and they would raise some money. And so now I'm an inspector on that power line, and my boss asked me to try to find a gravel pit closer than where we were hauling from. And so I kept looking and looking and looking, and I finally found what I thought would be a gravel pit. And so Seaward Construction, big company, I get a hold of them, and we go down and look at it, and the guy agrees, so they send down an excavator and a big bulldozer the next day. We never forget this, January 22nd, it was 22 below on my daily report. I'm not supposed to be doing anything but overseeing this work. They come in, Seaward does, a bunch of guys. We got an excavator and a dozer there, and they show up with 2 chainsaws that were made 40 years before or something. They couldn't get them started, neither one of them. And so they turn around and leave, and we're sitting there, and that bugged me. So I had a big Husqvarna chainsaw in the back of my truck, so I put my coveralls on and went up over the bank. And by the way, the excavator guy is starting a face, and you know, with the excavator.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a big stand of spruce in there, about like this, say 8 to 10 inch, all the same, about from me to you, over here to the stove. So I start cutting them, and they're falling away from their neighboring branches, you know. They're all straight, and they're all falling. The father and son on the equipment would hook in on a cable and on the dozer and pulling it down, and then the guy with the, you know. So I had cut a lot of trees, like 30 of them, and it was all going pretty fast. I don't have to limb or do anything, you know. So I just wait. They'd hook and pull it out of the way, and I'd cut another one. And so I cut one, and it went back just a little bit towards the other trees, you know. Oh, shit. So I'm looking at it and looking at it. I'm walking around and walking around. Do I go get him with a cable to help? No. I think if I cut this tree back here, it'll come this way and push it over. So I don't remember anything. I don't remember cutting it. But I do know that Larry Dixon said that I was 20 paces in the snow where there was no steps.
Mm.
And it hit me. I think what happened, the tree came back and hit me in the face. It broke my skull.
A fracture from his
this.
skull down across his cheek and
Wow.
took out his
Should have
couple
killed
teeth.
me, you know.
Mm.
And then but I came to, and those guys didn't come up to look, you know, and I don't know if I was out 30 seconds or 5 minutes or I don't know what. But I came to and I was laying in the snow face down, and I didn't know where I was or anything, and then just thinking, and I remember my heart beating like heck, you know, and then I knew my head hurt awful, and then I realized, finally came to me what I was doing, and then I got to get out of here, and I went to get up, and my wrist I dislocated the shoulder, so I can't hardly show you, but was behind my back on my spine, and the other tree came down and landed on my back, and I was pressed to the ground. I couldn't get out. I couldn't pull my hand out. And I realized all this, and the snow was deep. I mean, January 22nd in Victory, the snow was this deep. So I started pulling. Oh, by the way, I knew my eye was closed, you know. This was, well, after I got some sunlight in there, I pulled a whole bunch of snow out, and I kept pulling and pulling until finally I went down a little, and I pulled my arm out, and then I could see all this blood, and but I'm okay. I put my hand down to push myself out, and it just went like that, you know.
Oh.
Holy shit, you know, I just laid there some more. And I tried to holler, and I couldn't yell, you know, but I'd broken 4 teeth. And anyway, they probably could have saved my life. They came up to see what was wrong, and no. I crawled over to the bank. I couldn't get up. And the snow was kind of hard. But I'm at that bank, and they're standing down behind the excavator when you reverse the fans in the winter. They said they're keeping warm, and they were having a coffee and donuts. So I made a snowball with one hand, the best I could, you know, powdery, and I threw it. But when I did, my back hurt like hell, and I fell back down in the snow. But the snowball landed near them. He's trying to get us. So they stop what they're doing, and they make snowballs. So then I pushed myself back up, and I saw them go like this, but then they saw me, all blood. And so they came up and got me. Remember the old days? We never had fiberglass or plastic liners in bed liners in our pickups.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had a sheet of plywood. They were smart. I couldn't even talk. They came up with that plywood and put me on it and carried me down to the back of the truck, and they put me in there. You know, never moved me much.
Mm-hmm.
And I did pass out there because I don't remember turning them around or anything, but Larry,
Larry,
the father and son,
Larry and Larry.
nice man. The son had taken his coveralls off. And of course, I had some on, and he laid them on me, and he was laying on top of me to keep me warm. It was 22 below, but sensibly, you know. And we started out of there, and I don't remember that, except I remember stopping, and the next thing I know, there's this woman. You know, Maud Lund's daughter was supposed to meet me there because I was supposed to tell her how we survey something. And then when all the gravel we get is gone, we survey it again, and the volume is how much we pay you. And we want that to make sure it's right. We pay you to get a surveyor of your own. And then that's how we pay. Oh, I don't care. You just take what you want. And so we can't do things like that, you know. So, I'll get my daughter. So her daughter, who was maybe 50, showed up, and that's who had driven down in to meet me that day. I'd forgotten that she was supposed to meet me, so I could explain this to her. And so the next thing I know, she's over me there, and she's pulling I got a handkerchief out, and I'd put it, because I broke 4 teeth off, and they were hurting awful with the cold air. So I put it in my mouth, but the blood froze on it. So she puts her hand on me, and I can't talk. She gets it out of there and says, "What the heck happened to you?" And I said, "Well, I cut my own." I was laying there before thinking I had proposed to her, and my head was swollen bad here, and my eye was closed, and I thought I lost my eye. And I know she's not going to want to marry me.
Doesn't speak well for me, does it?
I was so scared of that the injuries. So she said, "Oh, what have you done?" or something like that. And I said, "I cut myself with a chainsaw." No, you didn't cut yourself, but you sure got hit with something bad. So she moved her car out of the way, and they drove me up the top, and I got in an ambulance, and I went. And I don't know why I'm telling you that.
That's a pretty good story. So let me ask you something. This is just on my mind. Lund.
Yeah,
Is that related to the gentleman named George Lund?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Did you know George Lund?
No.
No? I gather he was a pretty good deer hunter in his day down in that country. Shot some really big bucks.
Well, it might be. I mean, victories
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, really big ones.
The
Just-
gentleman that possibly shot the big rack deer in Vermont that your dad had,
Yeah,
was his last name Lund? Did he get that far
No.
with that?
that's where it had come from, right?
I don't know. I don't know that much of it.
Yeah, I don't know that they ever really got to the end of it.
Yeah.
Because George had passed away. What was it?
Yeah.
4 years, 5 years, maybe ago or longer.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they never really got to the end of it.
Oh.
Yeah, my
But
dad
this
tried.
This George had shot some really nice bucks. That Granby, Victory, all that country.
Have you guys hunted any of that country? Have you?
Yeah.
that's the Senecas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've hunted from one end to Canadian border to the bottom.
I kind of figured you had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, on that note, on the East Branch,
Yep.
I've been grading the East Branch all the way to the Norton Road. Then I do South America Pond to Madison Brook, and then some other logging roads for them. And in a month or so, I'll probably be done. On your way up the East Branch, there's mile markers.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere around 7, there's a cabin, a nice old log cabin beside the road. It says Camp 10.
Yep.
Ever talk to that guy?
I never have.
Stop.
Yeah?
You guys need to stop.
Okay. That's good info.
I could lend it to you.
You don't have it. You gave it to Bob McDowell.
But he'll give it back to me. I'll get it
He
to
did?
you. I'll
yeah.
get it to you. He put together some history of, well, we all have read books about the logging in New Hampshire and Vermont, but, they floated logs down the yellow, the black, the North Branch, the East Branch. And a big part of that it was done in New England were those tributaries. Well, that cabin was built in 1920, and the railroad went right in front of it. They built a railroad for the main road that went all the way up in that valley.
No kidding.
Yeah. And here's something that I never knew. I've read all these books. They're interesting. And actually, my ex-wife's husband, who we're friends with, had a camp that we visited quite a few times with our sons. And it was a gorge, huge, huge boulders. And they had this cable they would put across it, and it would hold back the logs. And then when the water built up and up in there till they wanted to release it, when times were right, they actually took an axe, and would generally with one mighty swing on that cable, it would split it and the logs would go through. And
Wow.
that's about 2 mile. Hey, I'm going to wander off this. The airplane under the cable. So this, I never knew that hardwood logs don't float. Never knew it.
Yeah.
So all the hardwood in that country was taken out on the railroad with the pictures you've seen of the horses pulling the big sleighs, if you will, on the railroad. Well, that railroad went right in front of them, and there was a big barn across the road from Camp 10. And can you think of the hay they had to put up, bring in there and put up to feed those horses for 5 months?
Yeah, I mean, that's a long ways to bring it, too.
Unbelievable.
That country, I'm sure, was nothing but woods back then.
Yes.
And fields are a long ways away from there.
They built the road all the way back in. Well, anyway, that's another story.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I will drop that magazine thing that he put together. But the guy's name is Steve Jocelyn. He and his son are the last people on the lease. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
And he's my age. And he's you bitch about something, you need to look around, you know. His back is fused from his neck to his butt. And
Wow.
he's like this. To put his socks on, he has a special tool, you know, like in the hospital.
Yep.
To put his shoes on, they're all slipper-type shoes. He has these tools in every room. If he drops something, he doesn't have to walk to another room to get it.
Huh.
He has a horrible time getting in and out of his car, pickup. And he's up there sitting all alone on. You can tell I'm a talker. So I'm running the grader. I parked my truck right almost in front of the camp because nobody's up there this mosquito-infested time of the year, you know. But wouldn't you know, he was there when I got back. The loggers give me a ride because I end up 4 or 5 miles farther up. And so every night, and they generally leave about 2:30, so they come and get me to move my truck.
Yeah.
And when they brought me back, I thought, oh, shit. So I better go apologize because he didn't really care. And so that was a rare time for Del, who didn't talk for an hour and a half
Yeah.
because I listened to somebody else.
Yeah.
You need to stop in, not deer season, and just
Do they use it during deer season? They don't.
Yeah.
Do they?
yeah, just a couple of them.
Yeah.
And he said they can't hunt.
Yeah.
They're too old. And,
Yeah.
and he couldn't even hunt if on his lawn, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Huh.
God, I left there more knowledgeable, but I have to think of this guy when I piss and moan about my ankle. What he would give to be in my condition.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Yep.
But a wealth of knowledge. And I'll drop that off at your house because
Sure.
Bob will bring it back to me. I know he will.
Sure.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting.
Because he knows if he doesn't, I'll kill him. So
So you had, speaking of camps, you've had some camps over the years, right?
yeah, I think maybe I already said something about the camp being, the lease was 0002. There's the second lease that St. Regis let out back in the old days. And so I would say I sold that camp about 8 years ago, and it was 50 years old the day I
No kidding.
sold it.
Yeah.
You shoot any bucks out of it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
quite a few in your book that you had written.
We should mention that you have written a book, Wide Racks, Tall Tines, and it is extremely hard to find. You got to know
that's
somebody that has a copy.
I think what we got to do is what we talked about before, and sometime I'll pursue that. For now, we'll leave that alone. But
Yeah.
I need to because we're still getting these calls.
Yeah. So your book, I would say, is probably the most informative book out there for someone that's interested in tracking.
Really?
Yes, you tell it the way that it is, right? And in some of your stories, you say, I'm not trying to offend anybody, right?
Yeah.
You give a lot of insight to someone that wants to track. you give a lot of insight on mentally how they should be, right? Like
Yeah.
not quitting in a way,
Yeah.
right?
Huh.
There's quite a few tips in there, you know, one of which you can't kill a big buck if you don't hunt where they live, right? And that goes
Yeah.
back to a little bit more. Like one of the key points that you had mentioned in one of those stories was you're in an area where the primary age of the bucks being harvested is 1.5 years old. The chances of you shooting a 200-pound buck in that area
Yeah.
is slim to none.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. I guess I remember saying that.
Yeah.
No, but it's very truthful.
Yeah.
Right. The stories that I read in there, that is probably the most informative book to anyone that
Huh.
wants to get into tracking.
That's nice of you.
It's true. It's of all the books that I've read, I was telling Joey today on the way, I said that is by far my favorite book that I've ever read, and I've been trying to get another copy of it since December, and it's they're very hard to come by. I don't know how many copies. If you said you did 2,000 of them or 1,000 of them,
Yeah. 3,000.
3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're very hard to come by.
They sure are.
Yeah. We got to do what I told you we need to do.
Yep.
And
Yep.
we just haven't taken the time. And this sort of thing, not this precious thing, but people call and ask me, and not to make any money with it. I would sell the thing now for what we pay for it, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's very valuable information in there, and those stories, some of those stories that you have in there they're priceless. They really are.
yeah,
They really are. I mean, there's one in there. There was a 260 some odd pound.
265 Maine buck that you had killed.
yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories was the buck pool buck.
Oh my God! Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I forgot all about that.
that was a really good story, and
About the guy that
at the store.
yeah, he weighed the deer wrong
Yeah, on purpose though.
on the platform.
Yeah, he added more weight to it so that
Yeah.
his buddy could win the buck pool and that you didn't win the buck pool.
Yeah.
But also, I think it was told about the time when you had dragged the deer for a ways, then it was going to be late, so you ended up going to a lady's house and knocking on her door, and she was scared
that's
to
right.
death.
Yeah.
And then she ended up
Yeah.
letting you in because you knew the store
Jesus, I
owner.
forgot all about that. She had a chain lock on her door, and it was raining, and I'd sprained my ankle walking up the road, and I put the gun over before I went to the door because I know how people are.
Yeah.
And it was pouring, and I didn't have the deer out at all, and I sprained the ankle jogging up the road on a stone, and yeah. Cubby Ainair owned that store up there. I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
And she said, please go away. So I stepped back and I said, listen, would you call a friend of mine named Cubby Ainair that owns a store? I said, yeah. He's your friend? Yeah. How do I know that? I said, I call him. And so she did, and he told her to let him in.
No kidding.
I bet I wrote about the pants she
You
gave.
did. You said
Jesus.
her husband had passed away,
Yeah.
and that she realized how wet you were. She made you supper.
Yeah.
Yeah, she made you supper and
Oh,
gave you the
I
clothes.
hate noodles,
Yeah.
cheese and noodles. I don't hate it, but I don't like it. She put a plate in front of me so big, you two couldn't have eaten it. I finally got it down, and she put more down.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm embarrassed. I would forget that.
I mean, those stories that you had written in that book are just they're great, well written.
Thank you.
Was that in Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine? Where was that?
Worcester Woods.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Actually, what happened, well, I probably put that in there. I was coming home to go hunting at the camp, and I got up on the way home. I came up through there, and I had a Volkswagen at the time, and the buck ran across the road in front of me. Okay. It was, I don't even remember if it was dark or not, and I got home, and we got snowed out. We couldn't get into Lewis Pond Camp. So my uncles were going to go down to the old camp that my uncle still had. So my brothers and my dad had already taken off. Well, I know where I'm going. And it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a super good story.
You were mentioning something about shooting the bark off a tree
Yeah.
to get a.
To get a buck to move.
Yeah,
You
did
told
I tell
me
you that
no,
on the phone?
No, you told me to remind you of that on the phone, that you'd like to tell that story to us.
I don't know if it's something we should put out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if some people wouldn't think that was stupid. You know what? I've been called.
I guarantee you they won't. They probably find it very, very interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, I put that on here, then I crossed it off.
Oh yeah.
The deer. I need a second here. Yeah, the one with the high tines that weighed 244. That you and I were looking
Yeah.
at.
Oh yeah. Wicked rack tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. My. Hey, would you guys like a glass of water or something or anything?
You want to take a break?
Yeah.
You want to take a break? We take a break. We'll take a break.
Yep.
We are back from break and try and pick up where we left off, but it's been a little while.
Okay. Well, new story. That big high tine buck that you saw in the other room.
Yeah.
That weighed 244, so it's one of my specials. My brother and Coon Fortin and a bunch of guys were hunting on this ridge, and we had no snow, so I was part of this, and we were probably close to 2 miles apart, but somehow managed to come down in the middle and regroup. But my brother and Coon was still up there. Actually, Coon was, and he found this place where these two bucks had fought. Very evident on the ground, torn up all around this little brook in a slight ravine. And you couldn't believe how much hair and blood. So he was emphatic that we come up and see this, but we already been, mountain climbing. So my brother Bobby said he was coming up. So they went up and they took pictures of it. And I guess it was pretty torn up. But as you can imagine, if they started fighting near this brook, they're not going to fight uphill. So they kind of fought their way back and forth across this little brook. My little brook is one of these. And in the end, there was a touch of snow up in there, a little bit. In the end, I never watch a lot of these, but when I've seen bucks fighting on the videos and stuff, one finally wins and the other one runs off, and this one runs 20 yards and stops, and he's the winner. These two bucks walked off in opposite directions. So everybody had to go home. That was the end of their week, I guess, or something. So the next day, I went up there on that mountain, and I parked my truck and I started up in, hoping that now I know there's two big bucks up there. At least by the hoofs, they were big. So I start up in, and I don't go 100 yards from my truck on a little knoll, and there's a bed. And the deer has walked away from it. I didn't spook it, but it was a big buck. So, and so I start following it, and it's going up on the mountain, and it gets up into near transition, and it was kind of angling to the left, and I was afraid it was going to go towards the river, and it did. And I started to go a little ways, and I said, I know just what's going to happen here. And I got nobody to come get me. I'm going to gamble. So I turn around and go back and decide to cut across the side of the mountain, because I know there's two big bucks up there. So I go quite a ways and I don't see anything. And I finally get over to where I could see a big clear cut. Well, I know it's there anyway. I hunt that country. And I can see that out there, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to just go pick up this skid road and go down and hike my way back. So I start to go out in it, and then all of a sudden I saw this deer. I see the whole deer. It's maybe 45 yards from me, but I can't see the head. And I can see it, and I know it's him. But what do you do? And so I'm waiting and waiting, and I don't know why I did it, because I have a favorite rifle, but I have a Browning lever action 308, And I took it for some reason that day, because I have anyway. I'm aiming and aiming and aiming and aiming, and the gun's starting to put weight on, And I thought, holy shit, if I move, this is over. But once in a while, I thought I could see a tine. He would move his head. But it was a long time, 10, 12 minutes. So finally I decided, well, if he bounds, he's going right into those firs. I'm never going to get him, and I know he's not going to turn around and go out in that open. So I go exceptionally slow, and I get about 4 feet against a tree. Now I can rest, my arm and stuff, and then once in a while, I'd swear I saw a tine. He was moving his head now and then, and so, but I wasn't sure. I waited and waited, and I said, Jesus, that tree, it looks like it's in front of him, but maybe 3 or 4 feet this side of him, but I couldn't tell for sure. I kept looking at it. Here goes. So I steady myself, and I take careful aim at the bark on the tree in front of his nose. But I thought it was like this. That I touch it off, and I work the lever. The deer, that I even saw a little bit of and the buck turned. I worked the lever, and he turns. He goes like this, and then I come up, and he went over this blowdown thing, and I shot, and then I can't see him. I can't get another shot. I ran over here, can't get another shot. Son of a bitch. But I sort of felt good when I shot. Well, I got all day now, the rest of the day. So I poke along, and I break out in where I shot over that. About 2 bounds after that in the snow, his bounding was about from here to that bag, nothing big. Mm-hmm. And I knew I had one in him. I mean, I knew it because he couldn't bound.
All right, boys, we're going to end this episode right here. Thanks for listening, and be sure to check back in next Wednesday at 7 a.m. to hear the rest of this episode.